everyone, I'm John. Welcome back to my channel, Learn More Science with me. Well, 2025, it's been a really long year and there's been a lot going on. Every year I do a environmental review where I go over the events as in terms of climate change and the environment over the course of the year, and we're going to do 2025's review now. So the time has come. Let's get started. So you got Oxfordshire here. This is where I live. We're going to go through every single continent, starting with Europe. The first thing that comes up, so this is the list of things that I'm going to talk about. There's more if you scroll down. Obviously, we'll get through them. So the first thing here is the floods in UK and Ireland. Now, the reason, so we've experienced some really, really big flooding, not just in the UK and Ireland, actually in most parts of the world. Yes, by the way, these are specific events. They're because obviously all of these extreme weather events have been happening everywhere in the world. So the UK and Ireland have had some severe flooding, especially during the winter, and this is and the autumn. This is mainly because of the summers. So the summers is actually the reason why this happens. So you can see here, this red bit here, which should really go over the whole of the world, really, shows where there's been some really, really extreme heat. And you can see here the orange bits there show wildfires. There's been quite a few. If I move here, we see the Mediterranean areas have also had some wildfires. And you see this summer is when it's really hot and there's barely any rain. Now, what that means is because our atmosphere is getting thicker, when it is hot for a long time, like when we're having a drought or a heat wave, then all of that water that gets evaporated can actually stay in that thick atmosphere for a long time, all that water vapor. So when it does start to rain, it rains a lot because there's all of that water vapor trapped in the thicker atmosphere. So when it rains, all of that comes down, and obviously our grounds can't support it, our rivers can't support it. It just gets too much, and this overflows and causes all sorts of problems when we talk about floods. Like I said, we've just been through the heat waves, very, very severe. Lots of people are being affected by these through things like heat stroke. It's really difficult in these situations, and it just shows you, and obviously the wildfires there we got there as well. It just shows you, you think of Europe as a very rich continent, and it just shows even if you are developed, it doesn't mean anything. Climate change is still going to affect you. It hurts developing countries really badly, but it really affects everybody. So this isn't a developing country problem. This is everybody's problem, and we all need to do our bit to solve it. Okay, so we've just been through Europe basically, so I think we can skip over now to North America. We're going to go the other side of the Atlantic. There we are. And if I zoom in a bit, you can see there's been quite a lot of extreme heat in these areas, particularly in the US. In these, you see these yellowy browny bits. These can get really hot at times. The deserts, Texas, and then look at California here, where if you remember, all over the course of the whole year, there have been specific points where there have been some really severe wildfires. These wildfires have actually been some of the most extreme weather events that have ever happened. It's costed the US government and LAFD and the whole of the state of California a lot, and it's caused a lot of damage as well. So it just shows you what I said about earlier about developed countries and how well they will do. That's not a thing climate change affects us all, and you can see it right here. And then I talked about the heat. We're going to move on to the stormy bits here. So if I turn that around there, zoom in. So you can see here, we've got the Bahamas and this Caribbean area. And if I go down to Jamaica here, there was a really big hurricane called Melissa a few months back. And it affected Jamaica really badly. It came over Jamaica and parts of the US and all parts of these Caribbean countries here. And it just caused complete havoc. Hospitals, schools, everything destroyed in its path. And obviously, with everything, all of this stuff is going to get more unpredictable, more frequent, and more extreme. That's what's going to happen with these extreme weather events if climate change progresses into the future. Uh, Moving on to South America now. So we're going to go down through Central America and down here into South America. We can see here there's been a lot of extreme heat, and the thing that I really want to show you is this bit here. So this is the Amazon rainforest, and the stats are that we've lost so much rainforest in 2025. It's all been cut down to make way for cattle farming or to actually make wooden items or paper. Cutting down trees has been a really big problem, and it's the Amazon rainforest. It's the world's largest rainforest, and all of those trees being cut down, all of those wildfires burning through the Amazon, it just ruins the homes for animals, because this is a really big diverse habitat, lots of endemic species. But also the Amazon rainforest is sometimes called the lungs of the earth because the trees there absorb so much carbon dioxide and release so much oxygen that if it weren't for them, we'd be struggling to live today. So you can see how important the Amazon rainforest is. The stats are that 1 hectare is cut down every minute. And that just shows how fast this is happening, and we really need to find solutions. This is being sort of discussed in COP30, which I made a video about, and we will come on to later. So without further ado, let's go to Asia. Gonna go over the Atlantic and over Africa, and the first bit here we got is the Bangladeshi floods. Alright, so this isn't a new thing. In Bangladesh there have been some really severe floods, and it really isn't a new thing. It's been happening for years now. And if you go down here, you see here, this is the Sundarbans rainforest, and here, this area, because it goes into the Bay of Bengal, it's when the sea level does rise. Yeah, see Sundarbans National Park. When the sea level does rise, when the ice in the north and the south poles melt, the sea level rises, and then it overflows all of this land there, and it pushes people into big cities. It pushes people up north into all of these big cities, and I believe that there is Dhaka, which is the capital of Bangladesh, and it's now getting really, really overpopulated, and it's getting really hard. The economy is struggling now because of climate change, and like I said, climate change affects developing countries really badly. So let's go out. Yes, that was Dhaka. Let's go out to our next. Well, this is also a flood. This is in the Punjab region of Pakistan. There were some really severe floods a few months ago, and that like I said, disrupted a lot of lives, destroyed a lot of things. It was a really intense situation there. Where are we going now? We're going down to the Maldives. This tropical paradise here is being engulfed in seawater. So, like I said about the sea level rise and how that affects Bangladesh, it affects the Maldives as well. So, these very low lying islands, there's some more in the Pacific, which we will get to when we move on to Oceania. So in 2100, it's expected to be that these islands here, the Maldives, will all be gone because of sea level rise. It'll just engulf the islands. And I'll show you a really good example of how that's been working out in the Pacific Ocean. Alright, moving on to Sri Lanka. So if you look at Sri Lanka and this part here in Southeast Asia, there were a few weeks ago there were some really severe floods. They were knocking out everything. All of the power was gone. Their supply chains were ruined. Hospitals, schools, buildings, houses, people were stuck. Communication lines were down. Roads were closed. Rescue teams couldn't get anywhere. It was absolute chaos. Everything went really wrong. And I hope that everybody's recovering smoothly in these places. Like I said, it's the same thing in Southeast Asia. If we move over there, it's the same story. Lots of devastation. It's terrible. Typhoons. So we've actually gone on to some storms now. Typhoons affect the Philippines, Japan, and this part basically of East Asia here is getting affected really badly by stormy weather. And like I said, it's just going to get worse and worse in the future because of climate change. What's next? All right. So I just highlighted this area of extreme heat in the whole of Asia and Africa because these are two regions that have been affected by extreme heat so much that the populations are going down. People are dying because of food loss, failing crops, heat stroke. It's getting really out of hand now. Back to Africa. So just crossed over the Middle East, and here we are. The extinction of the slender-billed curlew. So, guess what happened in 2025? We lost a species of bird. Let me show you. Let me show you a picture. So, this is a slender-billed curlew, and it is a type of curlew, so a bird, and it's native to North Africa and Eurasia. And unfortunately, it went extinct. There's a very famous poem about it's called The Last Curlew, and I've actually posted it on my Facebook page. Definitely go and check it out. It's a really sad story. Let's hope next year we don't lose a bunch of animals because lots of animals are going extinct because of human activities, and we really don't want that, do we? So we should try our hardest to make sure that animals don't go extinct because it is really horrible thing because there are some habitats where some animals are so important. If you lose them, then the whole ecosystem doesn't work. Everything crashes out. It's a really big situation. Oh, why are we going there? Oh, that's a surprise there in Oceania. We got Nigeria. So there have been also some severe floods here in Nigeria. You wouldn't actually think in such a hot place like the continent of Africa that there would be floods, but there have. And this is a really big, like I said, really big problem because there's lots of people live in Nigeria. So you can imagine the destruction it must have caused to all of those lives. Right, this thing is getting a bit impatient now, so let's move on to Oceania because there's a lot to talk about there. Right, so we got sea level rise. So really, this is just the bits that are really affected. Really, I should have highlighted all of these little dots, which are islands, by the way. Fiji, the Solomon Islands. So Fiji is and Vanuatu, if I can find it, are expected to go underwater by the year 2100. There's Vanuatu, along with the Maldives, because of the sea level rise. These islands are so low that the sea can just engulf them. Let me show you an example of that. By the way, this is Tuvalu here. Tuvalu, the first group of climate refugees, have left Tuvalu to Australia, which is over there. So Australia's opened a new thing called climate visas. Not that it'll be very helpful because look at all of these extreme weather events in Australia. But basically, if you live in Tuvalu, and I think there are a few more countries included in this, and your islands are being engulfed in seawater, you can move there and move over to Australia under a climate visa. This is climate refugees. This is a really big problem. Now it's gonna be even bigger in the future. People from small countryside towns or islands will be moving into big cities, causing massive overpopulation, economic crisis. It just shows that climate change isn't just an animal or a nature thing. It'll affect the world in really bad ways, things that you can't even imagine. Like I said, let me show you an example of this sea level rise. So, if you go, this is Kale Island, and actually the islands here are next to it. So Kale Island is in the Solomons, and if you look at it, if you look at the pictures, it is devastating. Basically, it was a really big island. Lots of people went there. It was a really nice place. And then all of a sudden in 2014, the island went underwater. So now you can actually get a boat from somewhere in the Solomon Islands, if you come here, you can't actually drive the boat around that freely because the sand of the island is literally so close to the surface, and there's actually some trees that are sticking out of the surface of the ocean, the really, really tall ones. And it just shows that Carly Island is an example of sea level rise and how it affects people, and it's just going to get worse. Like I keep on saying, it's getting worse and worse with climate change. Moving on, to Australia. So the climate visas may have been useful, but they won't be useful for too long because I'm sure a bunch of houses will start burning down because of the wildfires in Australia, which have been going on for ages. And I'm sure people might die of heat stroke because of the heat waves that have been going on for ages. Not a really good thing. It's really big. In this desert area here, it can get really, really hot, and this is just a big problem, especially for the animals there. Australia has, in fact, this whole continent of Oceania has so many endemic species. Marsupials, most of the marsupials, if not all of them, actually live in these parts of the world, especially in Australia. So if these animals go extinct, we've just lost a whole class of mammals, and it's really scary to think about. And another example of how even if you are a developed country, climate change can still affect you. So we've got Greenland here. Basically this Arctic Circle, all of the ice is melting, which is obviously going into the ocean and causing the sea level rise, as we know. And if we go down to Antarctica and the South Pole, we see there's also more melting ice, and that also goes into the sea and causes sea level rise. Now, going back, we're going to jump back to South America, and we're in Belém, Brazil, and this is COP30. Now, COP30 was this year's annual UN Climate Summit thing. Conference of Parties, this is the 30th meeting, and this is basically, in these summits, all UN world leaders and campaigners come in to the summit, and then they talk about how the progress that's being made with solving climate change and what new steps we can take to going forward in the future to also reduce the effects. But COP30 has been described as an utter disgrace because nothing was mentioned there. Barely any targets were met. In fact, there was no mention of fossil fuels in a summit designed to solve climate change. Let's hope the next COP isn't as much of a failure as this one. If you want to know more about COP30, go and check out the video that I made previously. So as we know, 2025 has been a big year, and I just want to say thank you to you all as well, because Science with Joe, we've had some incredible moments over 2025, and I couldn't have possibly done it without you guys. So thank you so much. I just want to share a few memories of 2025 with you.
And with that, the 2025 season comes to an end. Good night.
Rise when I gave the word. Now in the morning I sleep alone. Sweep the streets I used to